All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Cody with Acadiana Comfort. We're in Lafayette, Louisiana. We currently do a lot of work in the new construction market and the AR market. We have 16 employees. So I actually started off in the service industry in retrofit, and I had started using measureQuick early on, but we recently made a jump into the new construction market not too long ago. I'd say probably about 2.5, 3 years ago. And I always said that my goal in the new construction and specifically in the production market, which now we do a lot of higher end jobs as well. But when we first got into new construction, it was mainly production track homes, which is a really competitive market. It is low profit margins. It's fast pace. There's a whole lot of challenges that are present in that market. And so we knew that there was a few challenges that we were going to have. One was we had to limit the amount of callbacks. Warranty callbacks will cut your legs off. So we had to address that. We also had to address pricing with vendors and things like that. And so we learned real quick that we had to have a way to be able to verify certain aspects of an install to make sure that our number one callbacks, the things that we were seeing the most of, that we would be able to verify that those things were taken care of on the front end so that we could cut out anything that was coming back to us after the closing of the house or the final startup. Because I had used measureQuick early on in the service and retrofit, that was where we leaned into. We leaned into being able to utilize that for not just Energy Star houses, which there's a lot that goes into Energy Star that's not necessarily required of you on a typical track home startup. But what we found was that 90% of the callbacks that we got, not just from ourselves, but from service calls as well on newer homes, were airflow related. Airflow related with static pressure was something that was getting overlooked, which obviously measureQuick addresses in their workflow. So being able to have a system that guides you through almost step by step what that startup process looks like took a startup on a typical installation and moved it from a vacuum and opening up the service valves and then heading to the next one to a step-by-step instructional of what we needed to do to make sure that we optimize the performance of that particular system before we left. Not only were we able to give a step-by-step workflow to guys in the field that maybe had never bought a manometer or never really adjusted, for they just figured that a 3-ton air handler came set to 1200 CFM no matter what the ductwork looked like or what the application was. So we were able to take these tools and these measurements that people really didn't have an understanding of, and we were able to put this in their hands and say, hey, go out there. I know you don't really understand what this means yet, but this is where you need to be. This is how you use the tool, and you save to House Call Pro, upload the report, and then we can overlook it and make sure that there's nothing that looks a little funny. What ended up happening with our guys was that even though they weren't avid with checking static pressure and they didn't know what approach meant and they didn't know what a compression ratio was, what ended up happening is as they started seeing these startups and as they started seeing these systems running and as they started paying attention to approach, they started to get a mind of what a healthy approach looked like. They started getting a mind of what a healthy static pressure looked like. They started getting all of these things. And so measureQuick taught them what I would say is probably more advanced diagnostic skills from a industry that is not necessarily riddled with service techs, right? Because installers are not necessarily your guys that are out there solving these huge service problems. It was able to get the terminology in front of them so that they were seeing it every single day. And because of that, it advanced them in their training and their technical ability probably by tenfold, I would say.
Wow. How long did it take you for you to go on that journey?
So I would say the measureQuick journey has been years, because I want to say the first time I ever picked up measureQuick was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. We didn't start using measureQuick as a company until probably I'd say a year to a year and a half into competing in that new construction market. And we were starting up houses, and then I remember we had a subdivision that we started up probably like 15 houses within the span of a month. And I remember having a guy on site, QC or some kind of quality control, and there was water in the emergency drain pan. And I said, hey, look, it's Saturday. You're out there anyway. It's an hour and a half away from home. If you don't mind, why don't you just walk to the next couple houses and make sure everything is good so we don't get another call back. You don't have to drive back out there on the weekend. And the guy starts walking down the block on the subdivision, and every single house had water in the drain pan, in the emergency drain pan. So we're like, what the heck is going on? And so it's static pressure. We're not setting the fan speeds. We're not paying attention to fan flow. If the instruction manual or the installation manual was not left on top of the air handler, what were the chances that the average startup guy is going to Google the installation manual, look at the blower chart, pull out his manometer, check the static pressure, and then set the fan speed? Like, it wasn't going to happen. And it was things like that that were like, oh crap, moments for us that we were like, we need a way to measure this. We need to know. Look, we don't need to be doing 650 new construction houses a year and guessing whether or not these things are coming back to us or not. Like, we need to give ourselves the most probability of success. And the only way that we can do that and know that is if something was measured, and these are the important things. And measureQuick checks all the boxes for the important things, right? For the things that are going to cut out probably 80% of those callbacks. All of it is in measureQuick. And if you just follow it, make sure you're in the green, whether you actually know what that metric means or not. It'll get you to a point where the system is healthy when you leave the house, and you're not worrying whether or not you're going to catch this wave of houses coming back to you. You know, you walking down the subdivision and you've got 15 houses with water in the drain pan. And so that was our first kind of oh crap moment. And that was the inception of, how do we fix this? How are we more accurate? How are we more detailed? How do we measure the probability of success? And so we went back to measureQuick, and I pulled it out. I started using it with some of my guys. Some of them picked it up really quick. They love it. They still use it. Some of them picked it up and used it and were blown away by it, and then threw it to the side. And they just pull it out whenever they need it. And both uses, I believe, are okay. Like I said, measureQuick taught us a lot and put the information in front of us. And so when we need it, we use it. But for new construction, every startup we do a measureQuick on every single startup.
Hey, Cody, I have a question for you. A lot of times we see a lot of pushback from some senior technicians that learned their way of doing things over the last 15, 20 plus years. And how did you overcome that? Did you have to overcome that? And if you hired a new employee today, what would be the requirements to work there?
Yeah, you're going to have that. I have a certain amount of that in me because this is all I've ever done. But I would say that, yes, if you are trying to take a seasoned tech, let's just say a seasoned tech who's been taught a lot of rules of thumb, and there's a certain way of doing things, it's like teaching an old dog new tricks. It is a little bit harder because you're trying to rewire the way that this person has been taught to think. I've got 2 or 3 of them that are the same way, but they'll be honest with you and say, like, how many times have we sat in a room after testing something, learning something new, and gone, we've been taught wrong this entire time? Like, the amount of stuff that we thought we knew 10 years ago versus what we know about it today is jaw dropping. How much we just didn't know, thought we did, and would have argued with, to the death about, I'm super tech over here. But it just wasn't the case. We just didn't have the information. And so I think the more times that you can illustrate something, whether it's through training, whether it's in a classroom or in the field, that this particular thing that we thought was the right way to do something isn't necessarily that, and this is why, and you can show that, then you can start to retrain that way of thinking. But I think that the success that you're going to have with something like measureQuick and the TrueFlow Grid and some of these other newer processes are going to be young guys early on, starting from scratch. That's why I think Chad Simpson has such a great thing going on up there, is because this guy can pull them into that measureQuick training center, and he can teach them right off. They don't know another way. So they're learning the right way. They're learning the things that we got wrong, that I was wrong about for 10 or 15 years. They don't have to unlearn that stuff. They just start from scratch, and they start the right way. So I think if you're asking what the most successful, I think that the younger generation has the best opportunity because we know there's the Brian Orrs, the HVAC schools, there's measureQuick, there's all these resources out there that we just didn't have. We had the older generation telling us that beer can cold was a thing. And a 20-degree delta was a thing. That was the opportunities that we had. But these younger guys, they've got the world at their fingertips at this point. And so I think
No
that's the
bad
success that you're
habits.
going to have. But I think that you can change the way that some of the more seasoned techs think. You just have to point it out and illustrate it and talk about it and have conversations about it. And the minute that they realize, holy crap, like he's right. You're like this, and I don't ever act like I knew that. Like I don't come in and be like, come on guys, did you really not think about that? A lot of times I'll try and present it as I just learned this too. I just figured this out. Like 5 minutes
I'm on your
before I
level.
came in here and told you, I just figured it out too. So I'm with you. I'm right there with you. I'm not better than you. We're the same.
We've always had that problem of the same amount that you have. But when that light
Yeah.
bulb hits, it's like our biggest critics almost turn into our biggest champions.
Oh yeah.
Like at Jones Services, I don't know if Brian or Ben, you remember them from the symposium last year. They came down from New York. But you got to get them there. You got to get them to that light bulb.
Yeah, you got to get them in the room and you got to give them the information and you've got to have it somewhat figured out to be able to give them a reasonable explanation. So you can't say Ty Brannaman said it, even though I trust Ty Brannaman, like that guy says something, it's gold, right? But that's not good enough. You have to be able to work through it so that you can help them work through it too.
There's a couple of questions that I have. The first one is related to that. How long did that take you to, like when you came back to measureQuick? And after discovering, oh, we need something, did it take you a month of testing it yourself, like a week? And then were you provided resources from the company? Did they say, here's some time to test it out, or did you do it on your own time?
I did it quite a bit, but I think that's a good question because there's quite a few businesses in town that have tried to adopt measureQuick. And so one of the biggest pushbacks that we got from our people, I hear it from other owners too that are trying to adopt this, was that it takes too long. It turns a startup that should take an hour into a startup that maybe takes 2 hours, right? And then my guys would say the same thing. Do we really have to do measureQuick? Do it. Yeah, it's going to take twice as long. But I had done it enough times and I was able to confidently tell them like, no, you're going to it's going to speed up, right? And you're going to mess some things up and you're going to be working on a 3-ton and you're going to leave it at a 1.5. And it's going to tell you that, and you're going to have all these crazy measureQuick tests come back. And that's okay. Like we got to work through that. Like we know that we're going to expect some of that. And it's going to take you 2 hours and it may take you 2.5 and it may take you 3 and that's okay. And I think as like someone in a leadership position or an owner, like you have to, when you're trying to adopt things like this, like you have to you've got to give time and space for that. Like you can't go out there and throw this thing at your people and expect them to do more in the same amount of time, or even schedule them to say that, hey, look, it normally takes you 45 minutes to an hour to do a startup. So you got 45 minutes to an hour to do a startup and I need you to do measureQuick too, right? So you've got to create the space for them to be able to figure it out. And I would go on site with some of the guys, especially like while they were learning, and I would go through it with them and show them, and I would do one, and then we would do 2 or 3 startups a day. I would do the first house and they would do the second house, and I would just sit and watch, and I would just, they get hung up and I would tell them, okay, this is what's next. Make sure you go through this is the workflow. This is how you do it, but you have to give time. And if you stick with it and you're consistent, then it becomes probably one of the more valuable tools in your toolbox. But if you get out there and you're like, man, we didn't get to a house today because we did measureQuick twice and it took them 3 hours. It was like, yeah, but you should have planned for that. Like you should have allotted the space for them to be able to build this skill. And if you thought that this thing was going to be the silver bullet that just made everything go smooth, it's a tool like anything else. And if you're not giving them the ability and time and space to be able to figure it out and to be able to become efficient and proficient in it, then ultimately, you'll probably be one of the people that drops it to the wayside because it just takes too long. But at the same time, there's a balance there because in my mind, I always looked at the future and I knew because we had some issues that yes, it may take him an hour today longer and that'll get quicker. He'll get to the point where he can do measureQuick in 30, 45 minutes. Not a problem. I know he's going to get there. But it may take them an hour longer today, but it saved me an angry client, a callback, And it saved me probably 45 minutes driving over there, 45 minutes figuring out that the fan speed was wrong or the static pressure was wrong, and then 45 minutes driving back. So like it saved me time. It actually took me less time. And so I feel like if you have that perspective, then you'll make time.
And how often does it happen now?
It hardly ever happens now. Every now and then, some of the guys will switch out a probe or something that they don't realize it, and they'll have to go map it. Or now we have more tools. So like we were using all strictly field piece. Well, now we have the DG8s, so we can check the pressure in bedrooms and things like that. So they're using the DG8s for static pressure as well. You have to map that. So there's a lot of the back end stuff that sometimes will trip them up now. But nowadays, some of the more seasoned guys who use it, no trouble at all. And I really think that they've grown to rely on it. They love it now. It wasn't that way at first because in their mind, they were trying to get the job done and this was like a hindrance to them. But whenever we started getting less callbacks, less water and drain pans, then it becomes much more about the quality that we're accomplishing here and not just the quickness in which we did it.
Yeah, I love using the term slow down to speed up.
Yeah. No, if we slow down a little bit, ultimately it'll save us time in the long run.
And Cody, you brought up a great point too, because like I meet a lot of our new customers as they first sign up for measureQuick. So they usually meet with me on a call. I do an overview of the workflows and the app, and I don't get off of one call without them asking, how long is this going to take? That's always on their mind. And you really put it into perspective in a good way. And I appreciate that because a lot of times I can do it with my eyes closed and I can do it lickety split because I do these every day. Right. And I have my own tool set and I can just go outside on my own unit, fly through it. But that anxiety of change, right?
Right.
Change is never fun. So I always ask customers, what software are you running? Because it's reminiscent of that, right? When you brought on House Call Pro and having to learn that and teach your guys how to interact with it every day, there's that same type of learning curve that comes with technology that whether it's measureQuick, House Call Pro, some other type learning those things, there's that initial, and I call it anxiety because it is. It's this, I learned something new. And why are we doing this? And how long is this going to take?
I'm going to mess it up.
Or hoping that the boss will forget about it.
Unfortunately for them, it's been a couple of years now and we still haven't forgotten about it. So.
Exactly.
You got over the hump.
I think people just get comfortable in the way that they're doing things.
Yeah.
And change is difficult, but change is only change for so long. It's not a long time before change becomes the normal now, which is how measureQuick is for us. But look, we're working with measureQuick, Conduit. I've been doing load calculations for years and I use RightSoft and I feel like a whiz kid when I'm on RightSoft, like I'm really proficient at it, but I get on Conduit, I get a little twisted up.
Yeah, it's different.
Right. You have to, it's different. It's the same information in a different form, but you just have to do it. You have to be consistent. You know, if you're not, I feel like in where we are in our industry, we're in a position that I don't know if we've been in a long time. And that is, there is so much change. Things have changed so much, but not just from an air conditioning standpoint. Things have changed in the building market. The way that we're building houses is different. Man, you have to know a lot. If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not utilizing some of these softwares, if you're not utilizing some of these new processes, I really hate to say this, but you're going to pay for it in the long run because you're having to escalate technical abilities and knowledge so quickly these days that to believe that we're going to be able to touch every single one of our service techs and every single one of our installers and every single QC guy and teach them the long form way of doing this is just unreasonable, right? And if we're not doing that, if we're not putting that in their hands and allowing them to be able to figure this stuff out, then we're setting them up for failure. And if we're setting them up for failure, then we're setting ourselves up for failure at the end of the day. And so I don't know. I don't see an industry without the measureQuicks and the conduits. And I don't see an industry moving forward without this stuff.
Did you guys ever calculate like what those numbers were before?
We've never actually sat down and looked at like and that would be a really good metric. And we utilized a lot of job tags in our CRM. So I think that if we had some time and we could dig into that, we could probably tell you. But I'll tell you this, that our number one callback was fan speed related, it was static pressure related, and it was water and drain fans. Like I know that because I lived that. I paid for the ceilings. Like that, you remember where it hurts whenever it hurts your pocket, right? So we paid a lot of money in ceilings in new construction homes, and that was our largest callback for a long time. That's not our largest callback now. I mean, it has shifted to where you go through these seasons of, oh my God, another drain line. Oh my God, another air balance. Oh my God. And like we have moved out of the drain line season due to fan flow. Like we don't get those as much. We've obviously had other challenges along the way. We're in a hot climate with hot attics and we struggle to deliver capacity sometimes. But I would say that I'm confident in that the difference in the amount of callbacks we've had for startup related issues from a mechanical standpoint is way different. We've got more issues with manufacturers making mistakes at this point than I feel like we have with our startup people making mistakes. And sometimes it takes a while to figure that out. You may think that it's your guy, and then you find out that, oh no, there's a recall on this, or there's this, and we've been having this issue. But I could say that confidently. Can I give you a number? No, not at the moment, but I can tell you confidently that it has changed the typical callback for us.
I had a call with some new customer yesterday, and this is a timely topic. I asked what their callbacks were, and they're at 25%. On install. 1 out of 4 they're going back on.
Right.
And they do 4 installs a day.
Yeah.
So to put that into perspective, they can't do this fast enough. Luckily, they track it. I quantified it. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollar impact to the business that now they can free up and invest. I think it was like $250,000 that they were bleeding without doing anything right now. And so I can't wait to help them on their journey. That's on the high side. We hear from people, Cody, they're like, oh, I have no callbacks. Okay, you're lying. Nah. That's impossible. But we tend to see double digits a lot of times. And that should be the number one priority in the business, from my opinion. Mm-hmm. Being in this industry 30 years, then that should be number one priority, is to mitigate that risk. At whatever it takes. If it takes, like you said, if I can give my guys more time, knowing that it's been proven over and over again with measureQuick that it actually works and delivers those results, that now someone can actually implement with confidence, knowing, okay, we're going to have some learning curve. It's going to take some while. I got to give the crews a little bit more time. But once they're up and running, it's been proven over and over again that it works. So to not do anything about the callbacks is just, it boggles my mind.
Yeah, I don't know if people really know what to do.
Raise our price.
The last 10 years.
Raise your price.
Right. And look, we do have callbacks. Like, I don't trust the person who says we have no callbacks. Like, get out of here. I mean, no, look, our biggest callback at this point is that we live in climate zone 2. It's hot, it's humid, and we do a manual J on every house. So that was our first kind of step into what I felt like was trying to be a little bit higher performance in a market that typically was very low performance. It's at least in our area. I know there's people out there doing it, but our particular, I guess, what we saw and what we felt in our area was like, I think this can be done better. I think that if we can get into this, then my goal is to do it a little bit better. Now, of course, there's limitations, but one of the first, before we even started doing the measureQuick, our first goal was, we're going to do a load calculation on every house. And I was like, I guess that means I need to do load calculations, right? Like, I better figure this out. So luckily I knew the Dustin Coles and the Alex Meanies, and I knew these guys, and they were more than happy to help me. And I'll probably bug the heck out of them. And they were probably like, this annoying little kid,
they loved
it. Just needs to leave me alone. And so I had these resources that I was just lucky to, like, Dustin Cole was an hour away from me. And so the minute I found out, he helped me with a manual J one time, and he said, hey, call me, I can help you with this. And he put his phone number. I was like, we have the same area code. I was like, I'm calling him now. Like, I hope you're ready, because you're getting a phone call now. But anyway, so we figured that out. But our biggest callback is that everyone else is still oversizing air conditioners, and we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to mitigate humidity in a climate that's wet and hot. And they're like, hey, I just got home and I had my thermostat set to 75. And I put it to 68, and it's been 45 minutes and it's not there yet. Those are the callbacks that we're getting now, which then it looked like that can be tough, right? Yeah. Thank God my wife is like mental jujitsu when it comes to explaining these things to homeowners in a way that doesn't upset them. Like she's got this skill that she's learned through fire to how to deal with these really difficult situations, because we don't get to talk to the customer on the front end. But that, and then we have some air balance stuff as well, that whenever you have long duct runs through a 135-degree attic, you lose a little bit of capacity, or maybe it wasn't perfectly balanced. But those are our biggest callbacks. Like from a mechanical standpoint of how the air conditioner is operating since we've implemented measureQuick, we have not had a lot of those other than manufactured parts failing, whether it's a compressor or something that we had no control over and had the measureQuick to prove it. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a warranty conversation where the technical support is trying, well, did you do this? Did you do this? What was this? And I'm like, yeah, not a problem. Let me send you the measureQuick report. Right. And then they send me back this sheet that says, I need you to fill this sheet out. And their sheet just has everything that measureQuick has on it. I'm like, but can I just send you the measureQuick? Can you just look at it? It's all the same.
I love when they say, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
So we got to get them educated.
For warranty disputes, like the before, when you have those warranty conversations without having measureQuick data versus what it's like now.
Yeah. So, I mean, you would have never had the information that measureQuick provides you. Like you wouldn't have had that. And to be honest with you, I feel like even for myself, a few years back, they had asked me for information that I wouldn't have even known how to get for them. And so if you were asking me for compression ratio and I would have had to Google it. I would have had to go look it up, and I had to break out modern air conditioning and refrigeration. And what does that look like? And so you were a little bit at a disadvantage when it came to trying to communicate to tech support and try and convince them that you had done your part to make sure that their product was properly installed, and then not convince them of that so that they can then help you, because tech support is not immediately going to jump to, you did everything right and our component probably failed. You're right. That is not where we're starting in this conversation. This conversation looks like 75% of the installers out there are installing wrong. And you're probably one of those, like installing it and pulling a vacuum probably to 1,000 microns and opening the valves and rolling out. And that's probably why my compressor failed. But man, if I had a report with what I pulled my vacuum down to, if I have a report that tells me my compression ratio, if I have a report that tells me my superheat and my subcooling, if I have a report that gives me every piece of data, and I can immediately send it to them and say, this is what it was when we started it up. And it immediately moves that conversation to a point where you're standing on level ground now, right? Like you're in a situation where we're now seeing eye to eye. I've already provided you all the information that you need, that we did what we were supposed to. This is probably the first measureQuick report you've ever seen. So, I'm no longer in that 75%, right? And so I feel like at that point, you're more apt to be able to get the help that you need much quicker. Whereas without it, you're likely looking at a multiple visit, multiple return trip, which is costing you a whole bunch of money. And because, okay, let's send them back and get this one. And then you get back on the phone with tech support, and tech support also need this. And you're like, why didn't you tell me that? And I got to send the guy back, and I'm paying that truck roll again. And with measureQuick, I have it all. I'm ready to go. Like, here it is. And the good news was that by the time we saw the failure, we already had the measureQuick report in our CRM attached to House Call Pro, and it's been there for 6 months. So it's easy for someone in the office, like a service manager, to pull that. And it's like that service manager was there. Like, you don't have to have the tech that diagnosed the problem in the room with you. Like, he can pull the measureQuick report and he can go through it, and he's got all the information as if he did the startup himself, which means that now your truck can keep rolling and making money, and you can have someone in the office who has a little bit of downtime to be able to deal with this situation. And it just makes things go much smoother.
All
right, Brian.
It's great meeting you, Cody. I'll see you again.
You too. All right. Sounds good.
Yep. Thanks.